Let me yank you into a cold New York City morning, December 8, 1941. It's 7 a.m., and 17-year-old Tommy O'Connor is standing on a street corner, yelling above the clatter of horse-drawn carts and early morning trolleys. He's got a stack of New York Times papers under his arm, the headline printed in bold, black letters so big you can read M from across the street. War. U.S. declares war on Japan after Pearl Harbor attack. Tommy's voice is hoarse, but he keeps yelling. Extra. Extra. Read all about it. Japan bombs Hawaii, 2,000 dead. President says it's a date that will live in infamy. A man in a wool coat stops, fumbles with a nickel, and grabs a paper. He schemes the front page, his mouth dropping open. Jesus, he mutters. I thought we'd stay out of this. A woman walks by, pushing a stroller, and pauses. My husband's in the Navy, she says, her voice shaking. He's stationed in San Diego, do you think he's okay? Tommy doesn't know what to say. He just hands her a paper. I'm sure he's fine, ma'am. We're gonna fight back now. What Tommy didn't know that morning. This day wasn't just about America versus Japan. By the end of the week, Germany and Italy would declare war on the U.S., and World War II would stop being a European war or a Pacific War. It would become a global war. A war that would drag every continent into the fight. A war that America's entry would tip, permanently, toward the Allies. This is the story of December 8, 1941, how a single day of anger and resolve turned a nation of isolationists into the world's last hope, and how the Axis powers made the mistake of their lives by picking a fight with a country that could outbuild, outfight, and outlast them all. First, let's back up, because you gotta understand, America did not want to go to war in 1941. For years, we'd hidden behind isolationism, the idea that Europe's problems were Europe's, and Asia's problems were Asia's. We didn't want to get burned like we did in World War I, where 116,000 American boys died for a war that felt like it had nothing to do with us. In 1940, a Gallup poll asked Americans, should the U.S. get involved in the war in Europe? 90% said, no. Congress had even passed 3 neutrality acts in the 1930s, laws that banned selling weapons to warring countries, banned American ships from entering war zones, even banned Americans from traveling on ships owned by warring nations. We were building a wall between ourselves and the rest of the world. President Franklin D. Roosevelt hated it. He knew Hitler was a monster, knew Japan was gobbling up Asia, but he couldn't convince Congress or the American people to fight. In 1940, he gave a speech warning, we must be the great arsenal of democracy. But most Americans thought, let someone else be the arsenal. We'll just stay home. Then, on December 7, 1941, Japan blew that wall to pieces. By 9 a.m. on December 7, the news was everywhere. Radio stations interrupted soap operas and baseball games to read bulletins. Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, has been attacked by Japanese forces. Multiple U.S. battleships sunk. Thousands dead. People gathered around radios in living rooms, in barbershops, in town squares. A teacher in Iowa stopped her math class and turned on the radio, her students sat silent, staring at the speaker. A farmer in Kansas heard the news while milking cows, he dropped his bucket and rushed inside to tell his wife. A sailor in Boston, home on leave, ran to the nearest Navy recruiting office, yelling, I need to get back to my ship. Overnight, everything changed. The isolationism that had defined America for years. Gone. Anger replaced fear. Resolve replaced apathy. By midnight on December 7, 10,000 Americans had lined up at recruiting offices. A 21-year-old named Joe Louis, yes, the famous boxer, volunteered for the army that night. He said, I'm not just fighting for America. I'm fighting for every guy who died at Pearl Harbor. Now, let's jump to December 8, 10 a.m., in Washington, D.C. The White House is a hive of activity, secretaries rushing with papers, generals arguing in hallways, reporters camped out on the lawn. Inside the Oval Office, Roosevelt is sitting at his desk, his wheelchair pushed up to the window. He's just finished drafting a speech, short, sharp, no fluff. His secretary, Grace Tully, hands him a cup of coffee. "Mr. President," she says, "Congress is ready for you." The galleries are packed. Roosevelt nods. He adjusts his glasses, takes a deep breath. "Let's go tell 'em we're at war." At 12:30 p.m., he wheels himself into the House of Representatives. The room is silent, so silent you can hear the clock on the wall ticking. Every seat is filled, senators in dark suits, representatives in ties, even a few Supreme Court justices. The gallery is packed with people, wives of politicians, military families, reporters scribbling in notebooks. Roosevelt stops at the front of the room. He doesn't stand, he stays in his wheelchair, his hands resting on the desk in front of him. He looks out at the crowd, and for a second, you can see the anger in his eyes. Then he starts to speak, his voice clear and strong, carrying through the room. Yesterday, December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The attack yesterday on the Hawaiian Islands has caused severe damage to American naval and military forces. Very many American lives have been lost. In addition, American ships have been reported torpedoed on the high seas between San Francisco and Honolulu. No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory. When he finishes, the room erupts. Representatives stand, cheering and yelling. Some wave American flags. A few cry. The Speaker of the House, Sam Rayburn, bangs his gavel, but it takes 5 minutes to quiet the crowd. Then comes the vote. The House votes first, 388 yes to 1 no, that no vote. Representative Jeanette Rankin, a 61-year-old pacifist from Montana who'd also voted against World War I. When her name is called, she stands, her voice steady, "I cannot vote for war. I believe in peace." The room boos. Someone yells, "Traitor." Rankin sits down, her head held high. Later, she'll receive death threats, have to be escorted out of the Capitol by police. But she'll never regret her vote. "I voted my conscience," she says. War is never the answer. The Senate votes next, 82 yes to 0 no. At 4:10 p.m., Roosevelt signs the declaration of war. America is officially at war with Japan. Outside, the crowds go wild. People wave flags, sing, "God Bless America," honk car horns. A group of kids marches down Pennsylvania Avenue, yelling, "USA! USA!" A veteran of World War I stands on a bench, holding up a sign, "I fought for freedom then, I'll fight for it now." But in Tokyo, Japan's leaders are celebrating. Prime Minister Hideki Tojo, the man who ordered the Pearl Harbor attack, gives a speech on the radio, "The American people are soft. They will tire of war quickly. We will win the Pacific, and the world will respect the rising sun." Tojo is wrong. Dead wrong. But he won't realize it for months. Now, here's the twist no one saw coming. 3 days later, on December 11, 1941, Germany and Italy declare war on the U.S. Why? Because they were allies with Japan, part of the Axis powers, a pact signed in 1940 that said, "An attack on one is an attack on all." But Hitler didn't have to do it. The pact only required them to fight if Japan was attacked, not if Japan was the attacker. Hitler could have stayed neutral in the Pacific, focused on fighting the Soviet Union and Britain. But he didn't. Why? Because Hitler thought America was weak. He thought we'd be too busy fighting Japan to fight Germany. He thought our industrial machine was overrated. He even said, "The Americans are a nation of shopkeepers. They don't have the stomach for a real war." He also hated America. He saw us as a mongrel nation, a mix of races and cultures, something he thought was inferior to his Aryan master race. He wanted to destroy us, just like he wanted to destroy Britain and the Soviet Union. So on December 11th, Hitler gives a speech in Berlin, screaming, "I declare war on the United States of America. From this day forward, we will fight this Jewish-controlled, capitalist nation until it is destroyed." Italy's dictator, Benito Mussolini, Hitler's partner in crime, follows suit. He gives a speech from a balcony in Rome, waving his fists, "We stand with Japan. We will crush the Americans." This is the moment World War II becomes global. Now, America is fighting on two fronts, the Pacific, against Japan, and Europe, against Germany and Italy. But here's the thing, America is the only country in the world that can pull that off. We have the land, the resources, the people, and the industrial power to fight a two-ocean war. Britain's Prime Minister Winston Churchill hears the news and cries, tears of joy. He'd been begging America to join the war for years. Now, he says, at last. The United States is with us. We will win this war. Soviet leader Joseph Stalin, who'd been fighting Hitler alone since 1941, sends a message to Roosevelt, the Soviet Union will stand with America. Together, we will defeat the Axis. For the first time in the war, the Allies have a real chance. Let's talk about what America brings to the fight, because it's not just soldiers. It's industrial power. The kind of power the Axis powers could only dream of. Before the war, America's factories made cars, refrigerators, and toasters. After December 8, 1941, they made tanks, planes, and battleships. Ford's factory in Willow Run, Michigan, once a car plant, started making B-24 Liberator bombers. How many? One every 63 minutes. That's 24 bombers a day. General Motors turned its car factories into tank plants. In 1942, they made 20,000 tanks, more than Germany made in the entire war. Chrysler built a factory that made 4,000 airplanes a month. The numbers are mind-blowing. In 1941, America had 18,000 soldiers in the army. By 1943, we had 700,000. In 1941, we made 4,000 planes a year. By 1944, we made 96,000. In 1941, we had 7 aircraft carriers. By 1945, we had 100. Japan made 4,000 planes in 1942. America made 47,000. Germany made 12,000 tanks in 1942. America made 26,000. This is what Churchill called the arsenal of democracy. And it's why the Axis powers never stood a chance. Take a guy like Henry Ford, yes, the same guy who invented the Model T. In 1941, he said, "We can build a bomber every hour if we have to." Everyone laughed. By 1943, his factory was building one every 63 minutes. Ford didn't just build bombers, he built the machines that built bombers. He turned assembly lines into war machines. Or take a woman like Rosie the Riveter, symbol of the 6 million women who joined the workforce during the war. Before 1941, most women worked as secretaries or teachers. During the war, they worked in factories, building planes, welding tanks, loading ammo. A woman named Roswell Monroe, who inspired the Rosie the Riveter poster, worked at a Ford factory, building B-24 bombers. She said, "I'm not just building a plane. I'm building a way to win the war." America's soldiers were tough, too. Take John Brady, the 19-year-old sailor who survived Pearl Harbor. After December 8, he re-enlisted in the Navy, asking to be sent to the Pacific. He fought at Midway, at Guadalcanal, at Iwo Jima. He was shot in the leg at Iwo Jima, awarded a Purple Heart. When a reporter asked him why he kept fighting, he said, "For the guys who died at Pearl Harbor. For my buddy Mike, who didn't make it. I'm not gonna let their deaths be for nothing." Or take a guy like Audie Murphy, one of the most decorated soldiers of World War II. He was 17 when he joined the army in 1942, he lied about his age. He fought in Italy, France, and Germany. At the Battle of Holzwehr in 1945, he single-handedly held off 200 German soldiers, firing a machine gun from the top of a burning tank destroyer. He said, "I fought because I had to. Because America is worth fighting for." Now, let's fast forward to the Pacific. After December 8, Japan thought they'd have an easy time taking over the Pacific. They attacked the Philippines, Guam, Wake Island, and Malaya. They captured 70,000 American and Filipino soldiers in the Philippines, forcing them to march 60 miles to a prison camp in what's now called the Bataan Death March. 10,000 soldiers died on that march, starved, beaten, shot. But America fought back. In June 1942, at the Battle of Midway, U.S. Navy pilots sank 4 Japanese aircraft carriers, the same ones that launched the Pearl Harbor attack. It was the turning point of the Pacific War. After Midway, Japan was on the run. In 1943, American soldiers started island hopping, taking back Japanese-held islands one by one: Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Saipan, Iwo Jima, Okinawa. Each battle was brutal. At Iwo Jima, 6,800 Americans died. At Okinawa, 12,000 died. But each island brought us closer to Japan. In Europe, America joined Britain and Canada in fighting Germany. In 1942, American soldiers landed in North Africa, pushing back German troops. In 1943, they invaded Sicily and Italy, forcing Mussolini to resign. In 1944, on D-Day, June 6, 156,000 American, British, and Canadian soldiers landed on the beaches of Normandy, France. It was the biggest amphibious invasion in history. By August 1944, Paris was free. In 1945, American and Soviet soldiers met at the Elbe River in Germany, cutting the country in half. On April 30, 1945, Hitler committed suicide. On May 8, 1945, Germany surrendered. VE Day, victory in Europe. In the Pacific, Japan kept fighting. But America had a secret weapon, the atomic bomb. On August 6, 1945, we dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima. 80,000 people died instantly. On August 9, we dropped another on Nagasaki. 40,000 died. On August 15, 1945, Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's surrender. VJ Day, victory in Japan. World War II was over. And America's entry on December 8, 1941, was the reason we won. Let's talk about the cost. World War II was the deadliest war in history. 70 million people died, including 400,000 Americans. But the cost was worth it. We stopped Hitler's plan to take over the world. We stopped Japan's plan to build a Pacific empire. We saved democracy. But December 8, 1941, changed America in other ways, too. Before the war, we were an isolationist country. After the war, we became the world's leader. We helped rebuild Europe with the Marshall Plan, giving $13 billion, that's $150 billion today, to help countries like Germany, France, and Italy recover. We helped form the United Nations, so countries could talk instead of fight. We also changed at home. The 6 million women who worked in factories during the war proved they could do men's jobs, paving the way for women's rights. African American soldiers who fought for freedom overseas came home and asked, "Why can't I be free here?" Paving the way for the civil rights movement. John Brady came home from the war in 1945. He married his high school sweetheart, Mary, and had 3 kids. He got a job at a Ford factory, building cars instead of bombers. Every December 8, he'd take his kids to the local Veterans Memorial, lay a wreath, and tell them about Pearl Harbor, about Mike, about the war. When I was 19, he'd say, "I thought war was about guns and bombs. But it's not. It's about freedom. It's about making sure no one ever attacks us like that again." Jeanette Rankin, the woman who voted against the war, lived to be 92. She never apologized for her vote. "I still believe in peace," she said in 1972. "But I'm glad we won. Hitler was a monster. Sometimes, you have to fight to keep the peace." Hideki Tojo, Japan's prime minister, was tried for war crimes after the war. He was executed in 1948. Before he died, he wrote a letter apologizing for the Pearl Harbor attack. "I made a mistake," he said. "I underestimated America. I cost my country dearly." Adolf Hitler. He killed himself in his bunker in Berlin, never having to face the consequences of his actions. But his dream of a 1,000-year Reich lasted just 12 years. Benito Mussolini was captured by Italian partisans in 1945. He was shot, and his body was hung upside down in a square in Milan, so people could see the end of a dictator. Today, December 8, 1941, is still remembered as the day America woke up. It's a day we remember not just for the war we entered, but for the country we became. We went from a nation that wanted to stay out of the world's problems to a nation that leads the world in solving them. Every year, on December 8, veterans gather at memorials across the country. They wear their uniforms, their medals shining. They tell stories of the war, of their buddies, of the day America declared war. A few years ago, I met a 95-year-old veteran named Tom. He was 18 when he joined the Army on December 8, 1941. He said, "I didn't know what I was getting into. I just knew my country needed me. And you know what? I'd do it again. Because America is worth fighting for." That's the legacy of December 8, 1941. It's not just about a war. It's about a nation's resolve. It's about what happens when we stand together, when we put aside our differences and fight for something bigger than ourselves. We were attacked. We were angry. We fought back. And we won. That's the story of America. And that's a story worth remembering.